Hello everybody. Let's test it out and I hope it all works because I've been moving stuff around. So take your time. James is on the phone. We have stuff to do. I have set up, I've changed some things in the studio. I have some new kind of different wiring and I hope that things work. I see it is working somehow. Things should be fine. Looks like it's a little bit loud, maybe my voiceover. But that shouldn't have changed. As long as I'm not crackling or doing weirder sounds than I usually do with my mouth, that should be fine. So I'm loading a session. We have today's, looks good, nice. I wanted a green shirt. I couldn't find one, so I went for a skull with sunglasses and headphones. Because we're talking about badass stuff today, so I want it to be super aggressive and scary, you know, from the get-go. McDSP, you don't mess with that stuff. You don't mess with the awesome mind of Colin McDowell, the man behind it. I'm very happy that we're doing this because it's more than just plugins. I think what I kind of find cool to do this kind of stream is that I'm really going back to my roots of remembering how things started, which kind of plugins I started using when I was, you know, just sneaking into studios, and I had no idea I would do studio work in the next years, like, you know, mixing and recording and stuff. So quite cool. It just makes me feel a little bit more reminiscent. Is that the term? Of the old era? Because we're talking, I would say 28 years, 29, something like that. It should have been maybe 2006 or 5 in which I started hearing about it. And then, well, in 7, I already had the studio in Florence. So it's probably around 30 years. When did Filter Bank come out? I'll leave this question to you. Google it. No, I'm gonna Google it. We have time. Filter Bank first release date, right? Not the Sherman Filter Bank, the McDSP. Sherman's amazing tool, but 1998. Okay, 1998. I was not using McDSP for sure. Was I making music? Yes. Was I writing music? Yes. Did I have a laptop back then? Probably yes. By 1998, I had one. But what was I using was Mark of the Unicorn's digital performer, actually. But wow, it's 1998, and that's the first piece of software that McDSP came out with. That's cool. That's cool. So things work. Let me just double check that we have audio from the actual stream itself. Pick something here. Shouldn't give it for granted that we do have sound. In fact, I'm not hearing it. So why am I not hearing anything here? Oh, I know why. Hold on. I might have to reboot my card. Is it going up? Well, no. No. All right. Let's try this. Ready? This is not going to disrupt anything. Maybe. Maybe. All right. Maybe now. Ooh, fancy. It doesn't work. Okay. Don't panic. I think maybe we don't have. Fancy that. We actually have stuff. I mean, we've got still people settling down. If you have questions, I don't know how your day went, how your week went. It's a Friday, and for some reason, I just cannot believe it's a Friday. There's something about that isn't quite right. That it's a Friday, but you know that a Saturday is coming. And okay, let me see the control here. All right, James is ready. Awesome. But hold on. I have, okay, here it works. works. Do we hear bells? We don't hear bells. Why don't we hear bells? Okay, I think it's a Nuendo thing or not. So can you believe it? It's 1998 that Colin founded McDSP and made FilterBank. But what I know about Colin is that he was working in DigiDesign before founding McDSP. I think he left DigiDesign and built McDSP as we know it today. So he is probably responsible for a lot of stuff that went into Pro Tools Mix. I think that was the era. Pro Tools 6, Mix, 7, HD. I think we're already past 1998 for sure with HD. I'm thinking 5/6. Okay. But he could have been, I don't know how long he had already been there. Does it make sense in English? Yes. When he left in 1998. But I know for sure that Colin McDowell, the person behind McDSP and his staff, was working with DigiDesign's algorithms for plugins and EQs. He's probably the person or somebody, one of the people behind the EQ3, you know, the stock plugins. Deverb, maybe. The genius Deverb. I mean, Pro Tools has amazing stock plugins. So does Cubase, okay, and Logic and all the others. But Pro Tools being such a pro environment, I think, you know, it's such a staple in having very powerful stock plugins, which I believe probably from the other DAWs are the stock plugins that are the most in use, right? Because you have them in Logic as well, but there's not, I think the percentage of people among the users of a DAW who use stock plugins is the highest in Pro Tools, right? Because it's just people who want to get work done. All right, do you have audio? Yeah, you do. All right, so simple restart, and it worked. How does it work? So I have a session here. Let me see if everything is kind of knocking things down. This works, this works. This is not supposed to work. We're gonna stay here. Okay, so what else? I don't know. I feel like looking into a little bit more of the story. Okay, so there's a fantastic thing about, which is, you know, we're getting settled in. There's a fantastic thing about McDSP, the website, okay? If you go to their 25 years page, which I think it's a simple link in there, there is a picture, there's a video actually, whose thumbnail looks like it's somebody about to, it's a sad thing, it's about to jump from a window at McDSP's headquarters. I know there's nothing to laugh about, absolutely not, but I think they took a top-down drone view of their parking lot, and then from there the video starts, but the thumbnail, which is static of course, just looks like somebody about to jump off McDSP's headquarters. And again, the more I know I shouldn't laugh about that, the more I think it's insanely weird and somehow fitting for the, you know, amazing but weird kind of personality, like sparkling person that Colin is, because he's really a force of nature. He's made way more plugins that I think we're aware of in terms of McDSP. His hands and code are in more plugins than just McDSP. James, you say the PT compressor and EQs are like no-brainers and 0% CPU. Exactly. You know, but it's just the public, the audience of Pro Tools is people who want to get things done. So absolutely, that's probably hinting at why they're doing more of that. So they're now coming out with a fantastic APB thing. They have, you know, they won tons of awards. The plugin that started it all, yes, it's FilterBank. I'm just getting curious just because we're talking about that. And they've been used for so long, right? The reason is also there wasn't much available at the time. You had Pro Tools with its stock plugins, and here comes McDSP with their first third-party plugins available. So, you know, it was just a resonance in the plugins environment. Imagine how many brands we have today, tons. But before you had like Pro Tools, everybody was using that. And that's a good question. James is asking, is McDSP before Waves? And it's like dead air, I don't know. I would say that Waves is first. Waves is first. However, they were not developing for Pro Tools. They were developing for VST format at the time, I believe. I think Waves is 93? 92. Okay, so Waves Audio is 92. And I had kind of a hint idea that it was coming before McDSP as a brand. But again, McDSP branches off from Colin McDowell's, as far as I know, leaving DigiDesign and saying, I want to make my own company, I want to make plugins and, you know, stuff. Waves was available already, but Pro Tools did not have third-party plugins available to it. I am assuming, you know, Colin being into DigiDesign, he knew that Pro Tools was going to open to third-party plugins, and so he took that chance to just leave and become one of the first licensed, because as you know, for being in Pro Tools, you need to, you know, Avid's compatible format, you need a license by Avid now to release software that is AAX compatible. So at the time you had TDM and RTAS, and well, you didn't have TDM before Pro Tools 6, I think. I started in my own studio with 7. But I'm thinking, well, they had Pro Tools at Cello and other studios in which I was. When I first saw the McDSP plugins in use, these were on Pro Tools. So there was definitely a format. It was oh, absolutely. They had RTAS and AS. So Audio Suite and Real-Time Audio Suite were the software compatible versions that would use your your computer resources. And then you had mix plugins. I think that's how they were called, but it's kind of, I'm not seeing it straight because I didn't have Pro Tools 6. And when Pro Tools 6 was a thing, I was into studios just sneaking in. I was not doing any work for it. I think Waves did not have anything Pro Tools compatible. It had VST compatible stuff maybe by 1998 already, but not into Pro Tools. And I'm thinking Pro Tools either didn't have third-party plugins or was starting off around 98 or something, or just before, because I still know, and I hear people say Filter Bank was a plugin that people say like, well, have you tried that instead of the stock EQ? Wow, this, you know, and it was a sort of a water cooler piece of talk. So without further ado, should we do the introduction? We always do it for the video. Okay, so everybody stay silent, you know, just hang out in the corner. Hello everybody and welcome. This introduction for you in the future is from a live stream. Today we're going to talk about McDSP plugins, McDowell signal processing plugins. And these plugins have been with me for, we were just talking about that, I wouldn't say 30 years, but it might be 28, might be 29. It's scary. So they started off in 1998, and I was not doing studio work in 1998. I was still learning and stuff. And I had other DAWs, and I was writing my own music, but I didn't have McDSP stuff. Then I moved to the US, I started studying piano there, and I started accompanying some of my teachers in studios, among which one of my teachers was working in Cello Studios, which was still open at the time. And I had some of my most amazing experience in that studio, the chambers, and everything I would do was probably mostly staying silent and just doing what I was told. the era of being assistant and making a career in studios was done already. We're talking about 2003-ish. And I think by 4, Cello Studios closed its doors end of 2004, maybe. But it was around the time I was there. And I saw green plugins. And I was like, what are these plugins? People are like, well, this is, McDSP plugins. They're good stuff. And so I started seeing and operating, or probably like watching people operate plugins with McDSPs. And there was filter bank, and there was compressor bank, and there was analog channel. And I think I haven't seen much more at the time, but EQs were all filter bank. Compressors were all compressor bank CB101. And the interface was different, would be much tinier compared to what we have today. But it got stuck with me as a term of saying like, well, this is what the professionals use, right? When I opened my own studio, this is now 2007, I did it for teaching piano. But after a little bit, students came to me and said, I have some music of mine. Could we take a look at the arrangements and stuff? And it became natural in a DAW environment to kind of build something that would allow me to talk about music production, not just keyboards and piano. Also because the students were slacking and they weren't studying piano as much as they wanted to know about digital audio. So I had to survive and buy groceries. So my studio shifted to piano, keyboards, and digital audio and sound synthesis. And that's pretty much it, but it was already quite a lot. And so I got me plugins and I got McDSP stuff. Along, Mac Pro, NS10s I had already, actually take them from the US where I got them. And it just developed there. And I kept using these plugins, which is worth the introduction you're seeing here, until today, this very day of 2024. And I probably will for some more time because a lot of sessions I have use those plugins. So, precedents come and go, right? Warheads come and go, hopefully without exploding in, midair. But plugins don't quite come and go at the same way. There's some things like pizza and other stuff that just stick, right? Why? Probably because they're good. And I believe McDSP plugins are good. I get 0 time out of sales for this. So I'm excited to talk about this out of my sort of a nostalgia factor, because it just reminds me of how I started, why they were sounding cool, how analog emulations were back then and how they still work for today. But they are good plugins. I get entertained by a lot of new plugins. There's still a minority of them that I love, and my videos, so you just take a look at them and you will see them. I see improvement in a lot of DSP without being a programmer, but there's a foundation in a couple bundles that I just cannot live without when I do music production. It just feels comfortable to me. I understand it's a habit, but I believe they sound cool. So today, we're not gonna mix. I have to remind myself, we're not gonna mix. We're just gonna talk about, we're gonna mix. Gotta be honest with myself. We're gonna mix something, but not mix something in the sense of talking about the mix itself. I would like to showcase to you the products that McDSP has and why they are interesting to me and what they have, what they have that to me makes sense over other plugins, or maybe doesn't anymore. Used to and doesn't any longer. That's a good thing we should do. So I wanted to say something else, but I completely forgot. Oh yes, full disclosure, I am a McDSP endorsed artist. And I say that very proudly because I approached McDSP in 2019, I think, when I had already some music out and licensed, and I was working with people which McDSP knew, and I approached Colin and the other people and I said, look, I'm this guy, I've been doing this for so-and-so, and I have this kind of music. And Colin was like, why didn't you tell me that before? And so it was suddenly my fault. Very clever, Colin, thank you very much. But I appreciated that we got in touch and I got signed as an artist of them. So I do get updates, I do get the plugins, I have tons of perks, I get to test the stuff they're doing, I contribute. It's serious work, it's not that I'm slacking. But it feels very, something that I'm very proud and humbled for, because it's just such a great brand in the history of what I've done. And they're also very tight. They're not always, you know, giving you the $10 discount just because they want to be your grandmother kind of style developer. They don't do it. They know the quality of what they do. They stand behind their products. They're also sometimes a little bit posh, but I love them. You know, they're family to me now, and we're going to talk about these plugins. This was long, but it was kind of instructive. It will give you perspective on what I've done, all right? Let's do this. Now, the session that we have today is courtesy of Marcius, which is Martin, one of my patrons, and he sent me a tiny little bit of a snippet of a song he's working on. So because I had rewired part of the gear here, I thought I would give the gear that I had rewired a test. And so I wrote some stuff on top of what Martin has, just to bother his arrangement and stuff. I apologize, Martin, if this is not to your liking, but I just played stuff over it. Little bit, not that much. But I felt like there could have been a little bit more rhythmic elements and stuff. So it doesn't quite make any sense. We're just gonna talk about the plugins, but you know, it's a very nice song. Martin makes some industrial badass stuff that I really like. And look what I've done first and foremost. If we go to the inserts, right? And when I was just talking to, I don't remember his nickname, my name for 20 probably. And he's Italian, or she's Italian. I don't know if it's he or she. They are Italian. This is impersonal. And we were talking like, you know, he loves me, but I was just very humble. He said like, oh, Alberto, I love you so much for what you do, but you should use Studio One. I did use Studio One for the longest time, or at least 2019 till 23. But I had to stop using it because Nuendo was something I was using in a team of people who would trade sessions with me. And then I built my template in Nuendo, and then it gets, you know, your daily routine, and I'm using Nuendo more than Studio One today, but I absolutely love Studio One. So what I'm telling you today works regardless, because if you have native plugins, you can use them in VST format, which is the huge thing about McDSP. They used to be Pro Tools only. Born in 1998, Pro Tools only with filter bank and compressor bank and probably analog channel third, if I remember right. And from there on, it just became something, you know. And it was fun because he said like, you know, I would love you, but the DAW you use, you know, he said, come to the dark side of Studio One. And I was like, I am in the dark side of Studio One. I've made even 2 records of my own on Studio One, on top of what I've done for sketches, licensing. And I cannot say Nuendo gave me a better success rate. It's just the same. And I'm probably still as fast on Studio One as I am on Nuendo, because this thing is a minefield. You just, you know, you never know where you can click or not. And yeah, I'm still learning this thing. And I'm like feeling very, you know, old people using computers, which is a new thing to me. So you got a VST plugin manager, and here you have the McDSP plugins that you can sort by vendor, and you go all down here and you see the McDSP plugins, right? So what you can do, which I have done, is you can create collections of stuff. And I've been reworking my collections. I didn't have time to do a lot of them, but because I updated my McDSP plugins, yes, I was using old versions because I was afraid to update given some sessions that I was working on that had this stuff. And so you can create folders in here. You drag plugins from the left to the right pane, and you can make your own folders, call them whatever you want, which I think is beautiful. I gotta be honest with you, it's great, because I made a folder, called it EQ, and I dragged in there what I think is EQ. And it can be different brands, absolutely. I just wanted to make it, you know, McDSP. Dynamics, channel strips, effects, I called them effects, Fuzzbox, EC300, Revolver. Saturation, mastering, which is not even saturation, it's kind of analog emulation, whatever, but I called it saturation. Mastering, it's not necessarily for mastering, I just want these folders to be called mastering. And then post, it's not necessarily post, but to me that's post-production stuff, including DFE 555. So what do you know, right? You close this, and now when you want to instantiate an insert in Cubase and Nuendo, which I know as not Studio One and I love as well, you just instantiate these and you get your folders. So if you go to default, the plethora of plugins that I have installed shows up. If I go to McDSP, then I have the folders you saw. And it's a much shorter range, right? If you don't want to have folders, you can also not use folders, but you know, kind of cool, right? If we do this. So what are we going to talk about first? This is as exciting as it can be, right? I think we should listen to what Martin has done first. So I'm going to just solo all of these tracks, and they're even before, like after my VCAs. This is so wrong. So we're gonna go VCAs first, then Martin's tracks, and then we're gonna go with my tracks. Probably gonna make a folder out of this. Why haven't I done it? You know? So we can create a folder and then put it in. We can just probably not even do them. I mean, they're not tagged. We're just gonna keep them there. Everything gray comes from Martin, and everything purple or blue was added by me. So we're not gonna listen to any of these tracks, There's some effects as well that I've done here. I thought there was another one that I had made. For some reason, it's not here. There's my mix buses. There's my basses here. We don't really need to use them. But I'm gonna press play and we're gonna listen to what Martin's done, right? So, color bias. Yours should be gray. That's true. So, because Martin's stuff is gray, he's the boring one. My stuff is purple. It's just grapefruit bubblegum taste, right? So, well, you know, in a perfect world, you would have bass. I mean, look at the colors I have here. Have we ever talked about my color palette? If you're a patron of mine, you can download this. This should be ammunition already to say, like, I'm subscribing. Because look at that color palette for Cubase. It's so well nuanced. It's partly the main colors, as I call them, and then there's shenanigans, like golden flavors, there's all kind of gray dystopian stuff, there's camo, there's purple, magentas, brownish, I don't know, it just looks fine. And I'm so used to these now, it's unbelievable. But Martin's in gray. So what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna press play. And you know what? We're gonna press play without the mix bus. Because yes, there is a mix bus here. And I think it's gonna be loud, but honestly, I don't quite care. It could be loud. It's gonna be loud in here as well. But I have now devised a way for me to mute my lavalier. So what you can hear is just non-biased, all right? So let's listen to this tiny snippet that, yes, there's nothing here, that Martin devised, okay? Let's go.
This is the world you've made yourself. Now you have to live in it. No matter how hard we tried, we are doomed.
As easy as that. I love that. It's got a ton of potential. It's just a draft that Martin said. So just, you know, I would say just how cool is that somebody just sends you a draft of what they're writing? You shouldn't underestimate that, because it takes artistical guts to say, I'm working on it. I don't know where it's gonna go, but I have something. Do you want it for the live stream? And I was like, absolutely yes. And I would encourage everybody of you to just write stuff saying, I'm not making the best and most amazing piece of music ever. I'm just making something for next week's stream for Alberto. How cool is that? It's just like, if it's crap, it's crap. If it's something that doesn't work, doesn't work. I'm just doing it, spending maybe an afternoon. What comes out, comes out. He's just going to listen to it, use it, no pressure. Maybe just because you're not hijacking yourself, the best stuff comes out. You never know. So this was kind of a community, message, We can now resume normal programs. So very nice. There's a lot of cool stuff, but we're going to take this chance to just talk about McDSP plugins. We're not mixing, but we're mixing because, we're still mixing. So I've devised I've set up a loop, which is kind of good because it's the most meaty part. And I have a combination of plugins here that I will just talk about, okay? Just probably out of order because it's not in their chronological release. Ethan, get a proper job. Ethan has new updated firmware and can now even make a sort of a mochaccino caramel flavor. Yes. So I will talk about the plugins in line, but I will not be chronological because the way I've used them is just not chronological. I'm sorry if my mix bus doesn't follow chronological order. So I should kind of talk about that. So the first plugin that I would like to talk, there's just no way I cannot go past Filter Bank somehow. Filter Bank. Why is it called Filter Bank? This is the first plugin that McDSP came out. And Filter Bank is a bundle of 3 plugins, okay? You have the E606, then you have the F202, okay? I'm just gonna open them all so that you kind of get a glimpse for them, right? And then we have the P606, okay? What are these? Well, in a way, these are the most boring plugin you can probably look at or be surprised for. They're EQs, okay? And in a world in which you have infinite amount of bands, infinite amount of filters, dynamic, whatever, behaviors, ducking or gating, expanding, coloring, metering, frequency analysis, you name it. Graphs of all sorts, oversampling. Here, you're safe. There's nothing compared to the new stuff, okay? These 3 plugins make really the plugin that made McDSP come out to the market. And so all of a sudden, you had something else than the regular EQ3 stuff that Pro Tools had, which is still perfectly fine, but this was better. Why was it better? Because to people using it, it sounded better. Does it have any analog mojo? No. Does it do anything particular in terms of weirdness? No. It is just an EQ, right? But it still gets used, and I use it a lot. And there's people in here, James included, who said, honestly, I probably use F202 on more tracks than any other plugin of any brand. So here we're instantly in front of one of the principles of McDSP. You see something and you say, oh, well, okay, does it have analog emulation? Does it have harmonics? Does it emulate tubes, transformers, diodes, diode bridges, whatever? Different ways, ICs of all sorts, op-amps of weird, stuff, tape. Well, no. Chances are 80% of McDSP plugins really are 100% clean. And chances are they are 0 latency, 1 sample of latency, which was and still is a lot, very, 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 very convenient. I compose and mix my own music. And my mixing process happens while I'm composing a lot of stuff. When I'm mixing stuff for bands, we record stuff and then we mix it. If I were to do it today, a record with any of you, we would do recording, get the sound of the record during recording, but still then do mixing and then mastering, probably and hopefully through somebody else. because I don't want to master stuff I've mixed. I would rather not mix stuff I've recorded. But the man is good, so that's where it gets shady. These plugins being zero latency and me knowing them by heart, they work really well because I can play EQ, keep playing, adding stuff, and just keep going, right? So latency is a huge thing for me when I'm composing, especially. When I'm tracking, yes, mixing, you don't really need that, right? So E606, F202, P606. They're just filters, peaks, shelves, input and output gain, flip phase, a graph, everything's green. Why are we even here? Is there anything special with some of the curves? Well, I will tell you right off the bat, a lot of these parameters match any other plugin in clean EQ land you have. So why are we here? There is something about it in terms of workflow or usage or whatever that still in the catalog of McDSP makes me go here. I need an EQ. I either go to the 6060 because I'm in a module situation, or I just take filter bank. I have other plugins that I use, but filter bank by far having zero latency and being the safest feel to me, I still use it. So the way they've done it, instead of having a super amazing single EQ, which they could have done in the latest years, they've still split filter bank, their EQ, in three parts. They have F202, which has two filters, high pass and low pass. And you can select 6, 12, 18, 24. You select the frequency and you can select the Q on all except the 6. I think even on 12 it works. On 6 you have no Q. It's just pure 6 dB slope. Same thing on the LPF, which you go 6, you cannot do here. 12, you have a resonant peak, and same thing for 12, 18, 24. Now, are they linear phase? Well, maybe they're amazing because they have an amazing linear phase algorithm. They're minimum phase. And they're as minimum phase as any other plugin. So why would people employ these? I don't know, maybe it's kind of an Indiana Jones thing. I guarantee you when this came out and people started using it, records were done at a better level. People liked it, the equalization of filter bank better than what they had. They had probably a bit more control over how many bands they could load, CPU efficiency, and all that stuff. And if I'm not wrong, because I'm kind of starting to forget, maybe you can correct me, the previous versions did not have plots, right? You couldn't drag anything. You couldn't see what you were doing. You only had the knobs, right? So what they could do is probably get the behavior of a lot of the EQs in one go. So people, I remember with the previous filter bank, they could tell me that they could shape the cues closer to classic API, Neves, Harrison, SSL, you name it, equalizers than they could on the clean, straight Pro Tools version. But we've seen so much in the past years, so it's weird. So this is F202, and let's go to P606. It's called P because it's parametric, and you have 606 because it's 6 bands. You can turn them all on with the P button, and you have gain, and you have frequency, and you have Q. And it's as simple as that. You want to turn any of the first 3 into a shelf, in this case a low one, you engage LS, you get to low shelf. You want to turn any of the peaks into a high shelf, the last 3 peaks become, shelves. And yes, you can have 3 shelves, which is cool. You can do that. And you can also not use necessarily a shelf for your super extreme high frequencies. You can use a peak and turn the Q to a 0.10. So you can be really versatile on how things work, because a peak of 0.10 looks shelfy to me, if you want to allow me the term. How about we do a P5 on shelf full gain, or maybe half here, with a very soft Q. Look at the difference these have. That's a P5 shelf, that's a P6 shelf, even if it's 20K. Both are 20K, you can get the shelf to be much, there. And the other thing, absolutely. Also, James says, F202, and I appreciate that you're chiming in. I know James uses McDSP, but it just gives me more perspective on things that I might even overlook or just not see, right? F202 is fast, great control, resonant filters, and choice of slopes. It just sounds so much nicer than other filters, the sound of good code. And no FFT makes you listen. That's a one thing for sure. We can turn now the real-time analyzer with that tiny little RTA. Some people didn't even notice. They don't know it's there, myself included, until they told me, like, have you tried it? And I was like, what? And then now I know it, but you really, I gotta be honest with you, if we try and null a band against Pro Q3, Pro Tools, I don't know, you name it, they're gonna null. You're gonna have perfect silence down to dithering. 24 bits. I can almost guarantee you that because I've tried it. So again, this has only reinforced in me, why do I keep going to that one? Interface is a huge thing. Being used to how something in the mid frequencies looks, how wide you're grabbing frequencies in terms of Q. This is body, muscular memory as well, visual and auditive, linking, right? But it's true that there's the filters as well. Everything is legit. Like if you get this bundle and you use it, it sounds, sometimes I said something that is really wrong when I said it sounds fast. People were like, whoa, 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 whoa. What do you mean by it sounds fast? It's not a compressor. And I'm like, it sounds fast. I don't know. And they're like, have you nulled it against other plugins? I was like, yes, it does null. So how can it be fast? Well, when we null it, we don't have a transient, right? We have just a steady signal, and we compare it and we say like, okay, well, it's different. Well, they said, well, but if you print impulses, you will see if it's different. And I haven't done it. It's probably the same. I still have that feeling that it feels fast for whatever reason. And I know perfectly mathematically this doesn't work. But these things work. There's plenty of EQs on the market. These are also there. It's their bundle. You can do everything you want. Last but not least, the E606. This is more channel strip because you get 2 filters, right? Which can only be 6 or 12 dB per octave. You get 3 bands that can be peaks, actually P1 and P2 are peaks, right? And then you have HS and LS, I'll use to the 3 version, which is shelves. Can be peaks or shelves. So you have a 4. I don't know why they called it 6. Well, they called it 6 because it's kind of a mixed thing, right? So you have 2 filters at the sides, high pass and low pass. Then you have a P1 and P2 where you have strict peaks, gain, frequency, Q, simple as that. And then you have 2 extreme bands that have frequency gain, but they don't have Q. And so here, when you open the PSD, it's gonna give you PTSD. And I don't know, James, how was it for you when you went like, what is this PSD button? And then you kind of go back on the chair. It feels like you're gonna get A, electrocuted digitally, and B, it's like, wait, what? Because there's so much graphical content that they even added. It wasn't that, right? And people go like, what is this? Like a puzzle game from the 90s or something, like Kornev stuff exactly does that as well. It's very simple put, super, super simple. So PSD, it's peak slope dip. And Colin called it PSD. Now, it is my opinion, so I'm completely McDSP artist compliant, that a lot of the equalizers that you might be testing out, if there's something that they're closer together for, or that they sound the most similar with, are the peaks. Okay? Hear me out. And this happens in digital as well. I think because of Nyquist and filtering and I don't know, maybe the extreme bands. As I said, I'm not a programmer, but if there's something that will not match ever perfectly between one EQ and another one in digital, because hardware will never match, right? But if there is one thing that will get the farthest apart between two equalizers, it's the shelves. And there has to be a reason, but in my empirical tests, you might get the peaks to match, the shelves they don't match. And they get a null that is actually very low. And so I am positive that you will feel this. When Colin released these plugins, he wanted to make the shelves compatible with tons of different old EQs that were available at the time, which again, you couldn't do on the tools that you had at the time. So you still have the gain in the case of the high frequency, and you still have the frequency, right? Let's turn these off. But what you have, right? You have these HS, which becomes sort of like moldable in a way. If you change the peak around, you see how that higher slope is now changing. The way it's topping at the positive side, of the top side. If you change the slope, you're now altering the slope of the shelf. And if you do this on the dip, you're now altering the dip. So by changing these, sometimes you will get a much closer null to another EQ that does not have these controls, because you will tailor E606 on the EQ that has no sort of versatile controls. But this gives you plenty of control, right? So you might have, you see here, the slope. If we go peak 0, dip 0, and minimum slope, we have a very, very gentle sort of Massenburg style EQ shelf. A lot of vintage EQs actually don't go that way. They have, for example, you want to emulate some frequencies of the massive passive. You like maybe something about the 10K. You will be surprised that the massive passive actually has a lot of dip in the highs, way more than you would expect. So obviously you see how variable that is. It's increasing, with my gain, but that's what the PSD does. You can shift tons of things. And ultimately, how should you move? Well, by ear. You hear it when it works in a way or not. But people would build their own presets. They would know that, for example, for a mix bus or something gentle, you maybe not even want to have anything here. Peaks, slopes, dips, very gentle. And maybe you do the same for the lows and you get a very nice mastering vibe, right? For example, like very sharp here. But you might want to have, I don't know, maybe some peak here in the highs. Can I change it here? Well, no, I need some slope enhancement. There we go, right? Maybe you want to be a little bit sharper there. It could be. So you can do that here. And these used to be the filter bank sort of like breakthrough. The other thing was, and it's not minor, you could choose if you wanted knobs or sliders. And that was not a minor thing for the era in which plugin UIs were limited. Some people preferred knobs, others preferred sliders. You could choose at the beginning if you wanted to go old knobs or sliders or mixed in between. People, I dedicated some time to it because this was the plugin that initiated everything, okay? Now that we know what happened there, we can go to my mix bus. I kind of wanted to emulate, using just McDSP stuff, a little bit of an older way for me to set my work, okay? And we're going to test it on this mix bus. I promise now we're going to be more audio excited. The first plugin I wanted to use is the 6030. I wanted a compressor that was Varimu, okay? So I'm not thinking products. I'm thinking first insert, okay? It's my mix bus the way I used to do it when I was trying stuff for my own film and audio and TV music, and I wanted something that, kind of worked. So I did my own investigations, hooked up with people who were sometimes happy to share, sometimes they weren't, but I kind of sneaked in and saw it. I didn't use any violence or drugs to get the information out of them. Eventually, I kind of knew that one of the good stages for a canonical mix bus, missionary mix bus, there you go, I said it, is a vari mu right off the bat, insert one, okay? Marco says, these I use a lot on single channels. Yes. So McDSP in the latest years came up with a great module-based environment, which became many plugins, okay? And you will see it many times. They have a module selector on the left, ins and outs or high pass, and mix knobs, and which is kind of a dry wet, right? The meters on the right, and in between are modules. Now here, the 6030 is a basic module plugin that has only a selection of compressors, okay? So what you have here, which translates when you change modules, is a number of compressors, or yeah, just compressors. You don't have gates and expanders. So there's a C671, which is kind of a Fairchildy Varimu thing, MT2. I won't even name what they are, because either you see them and you kind of get an idea, or we should test them. But they all have their own sound, right? The IC2, the Opto C3, Opto L3, you know, we're in LA land, right? Teletronics, BC23, Nevish diode bridge, EZC, DBX, VCA thing, SST78, FET, FRG446, unique kind of thing in the land of McDSP, inspired by another huge plugin that came second, compressor bank, which we're gonna see. So filter bank, EQs, compressor bank, compressors. But this is a module that inherits some stuff from compressor bank. And then the D359, which is crunching, lots of character compressor type. So here, if you set a module and you switch to another one, it will save the settings and try and translate them as much as possible to the other module to give you the possibility of saying, okay, well, given the settings I wanted, this module kind of sounds more interesting. If it was to reset each time, would be painful, right? So the first move I wanted to do is just dial in a tiny little bit of, or maybe it's a lot now, I don't know, of Varimu compression. So we're gonna go bypass and engage, okay? So when the yellow thing is lit, we're bypassing innuendo Cubase, and when the yellow thing is gone, the bypass is disengaged. So when the bypass is disengaged, right, the plugin is engaged, okay? That's how it works. So yellow means off. That's how it is. I'm gonna start off and then we're gonna dial it in.
Live in it. Live in it.
Does it change a lot? Nope. Does it change? Does it do nothing? No. Does it do anything? Yes. It's just ever so slightly. I have my gain at what? 0. Okay, I'm not doing any gain reduction. New Depeche Mode banger right here. Yes, there is, just hear me out, there is a mix at 100%. The gain makeup is at 0. The time constant, which is the release, it's 5.5, and I have about a threshold that generates not even a dB of compression. But the side chain is between 20 and 200, which could be 100, could be 110. I don't know. I don't know. What does this mean? Why is it feeling louder? Or it's feeling more motivated out to me, but it's compressing half a dB without any gain makeup. So this should be quieter. And in fact, as a meter, it is, but you know, by a small amount, like a half a decibel. But why does it feel louder? Well, because the action of the compressor itself gives us that motivated feeling. And the Varimu use of first insert right off the bat, let's get into a Varimu. Oftentimes it's this type of thing you want. So this is by far not the most colored Varimu. It's not the most complicated. I really like the code. I'm gonna keep saying these a lot. I really like the code. It works musically nicely. It's a cool thing. And I've used the C671 and E671 on countless tracks, string basses, brasses, woodwinds. I don't write a lot for woodwinds, but even woods and stuff that doesn't quite usually float out of context, it will just sit down and go in the back. Also, when I write strings, which are not here, I like to have them not as a feature. I've said these millions of times. I want them to be something that if you really concentrate, you say, oh, Alberto uses there's a string orchestra in the back. But if you just blaze through a track I wrote, you go like, no, Alberto doesn't use strings. He doesn't, generally there's strings. Wait, this is a brass line. Okay, this is how I like to use orchestral sounds. And to achieve this kind of backdrop, the C671 I use a lot. Next, filter bank. We're experts. So this filter bank I've used, it's the P606. All the bands are on, and I have literally copied these from an EAR. This is an EAR 825. It wasn't the 825. It was a previous revision. There was this beautiful mastering EQ that is very elusive. There's a couple companies that have tried to emulate these, and they're nice, but I kind of took a look at the numbers and frequencies that were getting excited, and I was able to get a Q clone footprint of it, right? If you don't know what Q clone does, it's a Waves plugins that clones a Q curve that fields, records, captures, and then you can reuse it. Now we have much more complicated stuff, but 20 years ago it was insane. It doesn't do compression, doesn't do harmonics, just does EQ curves. So in the years, I took that and I said, I wish I had it in an EQ, sorta, right? And I developed these. So it's 52 hertz, 226, 1445, 5776, 2944, 5309. I just tried to mimic the curves that I was seeing in the visualizer. Okay, so this is something I've tried to match and then readjust it by ear. The Qs, the gains are roughly 1 dB, sometimes 0.2. Okay, and there's no shelves. In here, I just did peaks, which is fun because I'm sure the 825 or the EAR, they have the ER EQs, they have shelves, they have a low and a high shelf. But let's hear it with the Varimu, without filter bank, and then with. There's a minus 1.6 output, so I'm dropping down again. Let's hear. Maybe it does nothing, maybe it doesn't. This is kind of an autopilot, okay? The second thing I want is some EQ, just to highlight areas that I like.
Live in it. Live in it.
I have no idea. This is something I trusted on my own past. If I told you it's completely different, it's weird. If I had to tell you what I hear about it, I hear no sub shift, although sub energy here, it's kind of it's still a little bit shady, right? There's not a clear sub that I have highlighted, but there's sub energy here and there. It's definitely all coherent. Nothing's over shifting, nothing's sounding weird, nothing is making my head kind of turn around. But I hear this as an attenuation EQ somehow, probably because of how I've done it and then the minus 1.6. So I hear it as if I had dipped some areas that I don't like. So it feels like some 300s cleaned out, 200s cleaned out, 90 hertz cleaned out. 6,000 hertz is cleaned out. I don't know, 3.3K is cleaning out. 9 kilohertz is cleaner, but it's still the same track, but it kind of feels a little bit more organic, like less DAW. I don't know if that makes any sense, but this would be something that I know I can put and just maybe when the mix is done, try and see which band I can highlight without, trust me, moving anything else. That's one use of filter bank. You know, it's just completely non-existent. The third plugin I've used is filters. Because the kind of general setup here, and James says, interesting EQ technique. You boost with bells and then cut the output. This is giving you inverse cuts. Yes, exactly. And for as much as I know that, and I'm like, yeah, a lot of EQs kind of, if you use a Neve EQ and you want to cut, the best people who I saw cutting stuff using Neve EQs, not SSLs, but I would say APIs and Neves, actually boosted and then compensated. Because if you cut on a Neve, even more so than on an API, if you cut on a Neve, it doesn't quite sound as good as boosting. So if you boost and then compensate and you have the headroom, you're getting an improved version of that sound. So in theory, on a digital EQ, you could, just deep, right? It's essentially the same thing. But why did I do that? Because I had a profile of these ER EQ, right? Which again is not the 825. I know the 825 is the most famous, maybe the 815 or 824, I don't remember. But, super expensive, super expensive. You definitely are getting shapes, as James says, that you cannot get another way. With the digital EQ, with the super versatile behavior, you can probably go perfectly symmetrical gain, right? But on something like the 825 or a massive passive or a carve bender or a pass EQ or something, you cannot dip and boost equally, right? You can boost a specific way, and then if you want to get a cut in another area, it just doesn't quite work. Some cuts work in relation with boosts you've done, even on a Neve. So you dip on the mid frequencies because the boost on the highs or on the lows is kind of exciting the mids in a way you don't like. So it's a reaction to a previous boost on the same channel strip. On a digital EQ, you can do whatever you want. You can take a dip and perfectly dip as much as you want. But because I was coming from a profile, it just didn't do it. Now, I remember, I noticed that the EQ clone curve had a little bit of a scoop in the filters. The analog device was not, doing that. And to be honest with you, the filter here is not as low as it should be, but we can only get to 20 hertz, and it would be kind of a anti-DC reject filter. So if this is on or off, we could keep it on or keep it off. This was on, I'm gonna leave it on. It's funny that I see it on because in theory it's mostly the highs that I wanted to kind of get out. So let's try this. I don't expect it to sound massively different, but two things that we had on, we try the filter now.
Live in it.
I don't know. I trust these things. This is the beauty. Like, why am I teaching you this? This is counterproductive. Like, I'm telling people to just throw stuff on and just go. No, this is coming from something I know people have trusted and used and works. And I'm using it as a baseline for moving on. Does it make any sense to just go, right? The high scrapes here, as James says, are gentler. It's not a starting point that is really biting on my ears, but I imagine that on headphones, this could kind of get a little bit annoying maybe. So it's a nice lid that we make sure we have. 20 at 6 and 20 kilo and 15K actually at 6. So this I'm pretty sure that would mimic what I had on the profile of the, let's call it A25, the most. So that was a pretty dark unit, you might say, right? And you could probably be right. I don't know, maybe it was the age of the unit, but it doesn't sound like it's really taking out a lot. If you read 15K, you go like, wow, it's a lot. Now, fourth plugin, I wanted to compress. And I wanted something that would give the mix a little bit more bolts, okay? And so I opened Compressor Bank. Now I'm gonna take a look at just this version of Compressor Bank because it's super easy to just showcase what the others do. This one is called CB Compressor Bank 303, and it's a fantastic compressor. This dude is like David with Goliath. You know, it can face newer and most improved and amazing compressors and throw one rock at them and kill them. It still sounds amazing because of the code. I really like the code, how the envelopes behave. It's predictable, it works, it does musical things. It's something made by somebody who heard it and said, okay, well, this one works. There is taste involved while still being a scientist. Colin, I'm doing a lot of, how is it called? What's the word I am looking for? I don't know. Maybe it's out of PG-13 stuff. So CB303 is the biggest version you can get of Compressor Bank. When you buy Compressor Bank, you get all three. 303, 202, 101, okay? Is there a 404? There's not a 404. Compressor Bank, CB101, 202, and 303. The difference is that version 303 has the left pane for the filter and the right pane for the dynamic or static EQ. That's it. 101 basically is just a compressor. 202 adds filtering options for sidechaining or not. And 303 adds on top of what 202 has, the dynamic EQ. So what am I doing here? I'm doing a threshold of -10, a knee of 1, compression 4 to 1, a little bit of bite. I'm going to tell you right off the bat what it is in a second. Attack 3 milliseconds. Hey Martin, hello, well met. And I'm doing an auto release, okay? So I'm using auto release 3 milliseconds, compression 4 to 1. It's kind of a SSL. I started it off as a preset of British Bus 3, and it could be that. I've changed some stuff around. I don't know what I've changed. Probably the extreme sides and the auto release and things. I have a high pass filter set to 22 Hertz with a Q of 1.41, and that's it. Okay, so this is a pre-filter thing. It's not in line. It means that it's only for the detector to hear. Then I'm doing a little bit of bite, and bite is a control that lets fast transients through the more you use it. The more you increase bite, the more faster transients that would get sort of stunned by the compressor will pass in a more permissive way. So it gives you the perception of having a compressor that bites you more, okay? That's how it is. All right, sometimes I get, I used to say, well, bite 0 has the least bite, so it bites the least on the transients. No, it's like, the other way around. Then we have an EQ band. So this is a peak, but with the Q factors that we've noticed, if you go very low Q, you will have over a shelf of grabbing. It's at 6,666 Hertz. Right, it's there, it's all sixes, and it's dynamic. And these I've borrowed from a plugin that I think Brainworks does. It's the Master Desk that has a sort of a control emphasis that goes to 6,666. I kind of joked about it and tried it and was like, it's making a little bit of sense though. So the way I've said it is, if it's off, this whole right pane does nothing, right? If it's on static EQ, the values you see here are static. So you're compressing, and then you're doing that EQ band, and then you're out. In this case, it would be minus 0.8 at 6,666 hertz. But I'm making it dynamic. So the compression behavior is going to push the band towards the gain target that I have designed. Okay? Does it make sense? It's not there unless I'm compressing. Okay? So let's try this out. The particular part, I don't know. The knee I think I borrowed from the preset. Knee 1 was the British Bus 3 knee. Threshold minus 10, compression 4:1, 3 milliseconds attack, auto release, 1.5 byte, 2 dBs of output. This preset to remind myself that I have to get about 2 dBs of compression. And this would be the SSL kind of thing, right? Or a VCA gluey thing. And the particular stuff is that 6,000 thing and change, dynamic band, pushing down, grabbing on that area, and then the sidechain at 22 hertz, right? Okay, so let's start with it without, and then we engage it.
Live in it.
It's louder, right? I'm gaining those 2 dBs and it's louder. So now what I want to do is I want to reassess this. We're going to copy this to B and we're going to remake it in a way that, yeah, Martin says it's funny to suddenly have your tracks being played. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I used you in a positive way to say people make music, make draft stuff, right? Martin, I wrote stuff on it. I wrote a bass, kick and snare and crap, and Prophet 12. I wouldn't even call it synth track because Dave Smith is looking at me right now and he's either saying, this dude is amazing, he's using my stuff at its best, or he's saying, damn, why, who tuned the TV on this channel? Anyway, we'll hear it, but this is just your stuff. I don't want to make it about composing, but I've added stuff because I've rewired the studio, and so I wanted to see if the devices were working, and I just put some stuff in. And it's there, we'll hear it. But this is your tracks, right? So, and it's really cool stuff, and it's amazing you sent us drafts because people are very scared about it, and I said, do like Martin, just make something just for the stream, you know, and then I'll use it. I don't want to use stuff I've worked on. I hate it. You know, I don't want to use something I've used last year, you know, or a song of mine or something. If it's fresh, yes, but if I've mixed it already, I hate it. It's just so repetitive somehow. So you have key, you can listen to the sidechain, flip phase, all these things. Let's reassess the compression factor right now.
Live in it.
Super simple, right? Drop the threshold down, we get 2 dBs of compression, and now my 2 dBs of makeup makes sense. So now we can do the comparison.
Live in it.
It's still a tad louder. I should go maybe 0.2 down in the output or something, but I'll keep it there. If it was an analog device, we would want to know how much we're pushing in the out because the output gain has a color. This compressor, again, no color. Whenever there's color, I'm going to tell you, okay? Let's make it that way. Super clean compressor, great envelopes, works nicely. Now, what I want you to kind of realize is I'm going to put these to static EQ. And I'm going to boost this band, okay, which is at minus 0.8. Let's hear what kind of frequency I'm dipping with compression, okay?
Live in it.
Okay, was it horrible? Yes, right? But I didn't want to make it like a digital kind of fixing thing. Just that sheen thing just go down with compression. It gives the idea of a darker compressor. This part, the dynamic part, is just insane because you can do it on 500 hertz, instant electric guitars fixer. You know Slipknot heavy guitar stuff? You will never get it with tons of 500 hertz out of control. Trust me, I know that for a fact. But if your bus compressor on the guitar bus is scooping the 500 when guitars are rich in compression gain reduction, all of a sudden the thing is breathing. And when it's not compressing, maybe they aren't that loud, so you can have a little bit of that. So once you fine-tune that simple control, you can slay other compressors with just that single knob. And zero visual, zero graphs, input, gain reduction, output. We're even lucky if we get a version number in this thing, 72021 at the time of this video. Okay, so it's peculiar and it works. Let's move on because there's so much stuff to do. Now, the last plugin I've put here, which is just for kicks, it's not something I would use. It's something we could spend hours on. It's called Analog Channel. This is the 202. They make the 101 and the 202. 101 is dynamics of an analog channel stereotype. You can make all analog channel types, tubes, transformers, whatever, just by handling dynamic control, so time domain and frequency domain, right? So they have these two plugins, and the 202 does, let's say, tape emulation, right? So Martin, who logged in just like 2 minutes ago, says, I am not sure how the dynamic EQ works on the CB303. Do I need to push a frequency so it compresses more at that range or the other way around? Well, the setting you have will become effective with gain reduction. So the gain reduction movement will dial in your compression, right? Does it make sense? So it's easy if you want to tailor it. You just go extreme and you hear that when you're compressing something, it just becomes extremely bright, right? It's lower in gain, but it's brighter. It means that it's reaching that target with gain reduction. That's how you do it. Try that out. Do it extremely, push down with gain reduction, and hear if it's getting brighter or darker. That's what's going towards when it's compressing. Then your brain will kind of nail down. It's possible I'm doing the opposite. I've been known for doing the opposite a couple of times, especially when they changed the thing, but I'm fairly sure about it. Now, AC202 has input and output, auto gain, flip phase on channels. It's just a tape emulator, okay? Just a tape emulator. You have a roll-off that selects where you want the roll-off to happen in the frequencies. You have tape models, Swiss, Japan, USA, M and A, Japan S and T. The bump that you want to have. The bump also matches the dip. So once you've selected a machine type, your bump will affect the relationship between lows and low mids. Okay, so roll off chooses this. The bump handles the bump versus dip behavior. Japan, see here, USA M, USA A, Japan S, Japan T, right? I like the M. Now, I like different, stuff, but this has the widest bump and the widest dip somehow, which I've made here in my B preset. Martin says, why is the roll off at 100 Hertz? Does it have any relationship with the real tape machine? My roll off is at 33 Hertz right now. I could give you, I've known people who restore tape machines or own them through a very kind of empirical thing. I've done it through the people I work with for tutorial videos. You probably know who I'm talking about. And these people have made precise measurements of what types of bumps and roll-offs some of their machines have. So in some cases, I could tell you, if you want to emulate a JCI tape machine, you should probably put the roll-off here if it's a 1/4 inch, here if it's a 1/2 inch, stuff like that. But the way I've dialed this preset is by ear. especially on the bias and release, because the release is setting some tape compression behavior, and the bias is how that high frequency content is triggering the sort of deharshening factor, which we see in the gain reduction. Then you choose the IPS, the EQ type IC1 or 2, which is sort of a knob NCCIR, but I don't think it is. And the vintage or modern tape behaviors are more like how hot can the tape be before it starts saturating. Okay, let's do it before and after, and then we'll say that we're surprised or not compared to other plugins. Let's first do it without and with.
Live in it. Live in it.
To be honest with you, to say that, oh, it's a massive difference, I really don't think it is. But if I don't say the following thing, you will be completely out of a reference. And it is subtle and it's great, but I didn't dial it this way. Yeah, Martin says like it's subtle, but it's great. It's kind of taking this song outside of the DAW. I've said it many times that what I don't like, which apparently is what a lot of people like. Okay, so I'm telling you things that might completely derail your career, but I don't like it when a song feels like it's into a DAW and I'm listening to a DAW session to which I'm playing spacebar. I don't want to feel like my music is a spacebar movement, like boop. Okay, I'm hearing something in Ableton Live. I'm hearing something in Logic. I don't want that. If I get a feeling that a song of mine is practically me pushing spacebar, it is the most depressing feeling ever. It has to feel like I'm hearing it from the title screen of a super amazing video game that I would have loved to score. Okay? And there's so many of them. I am so fortunate that I have so many things I could have done to aspire to, right? But it's the truth. It has to feel like it's coming from the actual destination for which I would like to write some piece of music. You know, a stage, a music, a record. Somebody put it on their hi-fi. Somebody is, you know, doing whatever while the music's playing. I don't know. Just that thing. Not a DAW. Not a DAW. A digital audio workstation. This thing helps a lot, but I would be lying to you if I said, this is how I said it, ciao. I don't do that. The way I've said these is I have pushed the bias way more than I wanted. And then I've put it back to where it's doing practically nothing, which we'll try now. And then to further test these, I have lowered the output and pushed input. Why? Because if I do this and I set it initially to a level at which my session is not pushing, I know with the mix phase I will get to stimulate it. So it needs to be at a very relaxed stage because then I will push into it more. So exactly, Martin says, I am sometimes pushing the input and compensating the output for more effect. Exactly. So because this is an initial mix bus, I want it to be not reacting, or maybe only barely getting this. But when I add my own tracks, we'll go back to the mix bus. We'll hear how the thing's lifting off because I've been probably super badass and loud on stuff, right? We'll hear it. It's curious. It's a fun thing for the stream. But the way I've dialed this is as follows. So we're gonna crank the bias up. We're gonna push more high frequency content into the saturation sort of behavior, and we're gonna hear it compress. Then we'll go back to the setting that I have, and then we'll try and go high input, low output, just to feel what kind of tape machine do I have, okay? And I'll move some of the roll-offs and bumps just to give you an idea of how this works. But you can demo these plugins, so I'm trying to be complete, but still into overview mode, okay? The first thing I've set is USA M, and that one I've set out of trust, really. I like that model. Is the M79 would be whatever, like something that I wanted and then I never got. It's one of my favorite tape machines that are not Studer or Ampex, and it's just great for mixes, I think. You know, A would be probably more Ampexy, Swiss would be more Studery. So, well, it's okay. M is different. Nobody uses it, maybe. Okay, so bias, input, output, play with stuff, come to conclusions. Let's do this.
Live in it. Live in it.
Well, now you hear it, right? I'm getting a very slow release, very biased pushing into it. There's a very biased signal pushing into it. And I'm losing signal because the tape is saturating, but I am compensating with the output. I haven't even touched the input. And it's all there, but it's not as bright as it was before. But it isn't dark. It's cool, right? It's just simple as that. And you can use that as a deharshing thing. This thing on vocals as a first plugin is your safety mechanism sometimes. When people track vocals on cheap audio cards, cheap microphones, and then they give you tracks to make it an amazing mix. Please make it amazing. Just tape it right off the bat with this one, and it works. So, you know, I think rather than moving the input and output, we could do that. Let's just, you know, charge the tape machine and just play with roll off and bump.
Live in it. Live in it.
Wow, the sub. So this could be a way to say, you know what, I want to address the subwoofer frequency right off from the tape as a last insert on my mix bus. It works. It's a good one. So James says, I don't use a lot of AC202 because I use heat for tape of tracks. The heat is amazing as well. But you love what you hear here. And is it correct to say that both heat and AC202 have that tape non-real tape behavior to, like they kind of transcend the plugins that want to make the, oh, this is such a real tape machine out of it. It's a little bit more of a stereotypical behavior of tape, and for that reason it never gets boring. It integrates itself very well, and it just works without saying, ooh, this is tape, right? Even in the interface itself. It's energy dependent, absolutely, yes. You hear how now, because this is after the mix bus, like it's a very last stage, I can be more extreme, way more extreme, and the mix is solidified by the other steps that I am inputting a lot more good stuff in it there, and I can rely on it for punching subwoofer energy in, which probably you would not use a real tape deck to say, wow, the 30 hertz I'm getting, but it works, right? So I'm gonna put it back to where we were, where we have more of a cleansing factor in the mids than we have a bump in the lows, right? But it's kind of nice. I'm gonna just play it and go vintage modern just to give you an idea of what happens.
Live in it.
See how it's saturating differently, right? Now, the thing here is that I have moved, this was 3.2, right? I've moved stuff around. So what was it here? You can do copy, go back here, paste, and then the bias was something at about 3. Because this one has I kind of mixed and matched things, but I remember that was kind of the settings. I will go back in time and find it. But 0, 0, I'm not looking for anything. Let me just play that. This should be right. Maybe the bump is a little bit too much. No, I think it's right.
Live in it.
In this case, it's even, now that we heard when it was scooping out, I kind of think that, I kind of crave that high frequency ease, right? Flexibility of it that I don't have from my preset here. So is it right? Like I kind of find it harsh now that I could hear everything perfectly before with a more tamed high registry. Martin says, it annoys me a bit when switching between vintage and modern. The compressor reacts completely different, makes it difficult to compare. That's true. I use it I keep it mostly on modern, but you can go vintage, and even the IEC and the IPS, I practically never touched. Like with the tape model, you get a little bit of experience and you say, you know what? You know, this is it. But because the vintage drops the saturation threshold more, it's like dropping the threshold on a compressor, you get completely different harmonics. So it's kind of hard to compensate. Maybe on single tracks, start right off the bat with vintage and then get a lot more. Modern requires high volumes, high gain to kind of get the tape going. Vintage is very easy to kind of drive. So, but yeah, that's true. When you switch that, it's like, that's much lower. Is it better sounding? Is it not better? So let's keep it there. Although I gotta be honest with you, this is giving me the idea of I want it more tamed, like it was when we overdid it. It sounded very addictive. You cannot tell there's a pillow on the high frequencies, right? The way I do vintage and modern, maybe by habit, is like I almost instantly know, or maybe I want to limit my choices and I go, here I want USAM vintage 15, boom. I try the IC and then I go, okay. And even the IC isn't that different. Let's try that.
Live in it.
I keep the samples short so that we don't get overtired, but you can demo this. The hi-hat on IC1 is either here in front of my head or on IC2 is on the back of the center. So there's a hypothetical center and the IC is moving the high frequency content transients in the front or in the back. In this case, I like the two because it feels like it's going in the back. All right, so I told you we could stay hours on it. We did, little bit, not that much. So I ended up with this thing, and what did I do to it? So, okay, the first thing I wanted to write was I've added some samples. So I've added kicks, very subtle but important way for adding depth. Yes, exactly. That high frequency displacement is really, really good for saying move back there. And you can hear a lot of the detail. It's just not harassing you, right? So the first thing I did was adding some kicks. Let me see. Kicks, snares, China chokes, and cymbals. Okay, so I'm gonna go one by one. These go to All Beats, okay? So All Beats has a 4040 retro limiter. That's a kind of a newer thing by McDSP back in the days. This is already old now, but I'm gonna keep it off and I'm gonna show you what I've done with just writing kicks. I'm gonna solo the kicks, then the snares, China chokes, I don't even know what names I found, and cymbals. And then I'm gonna add the other two things I wrote with the effects, and then we're gonna add them together to what Martin added. Okay, so we're gonna hear what I've done, but now you have to kind of guess how the things are gonna do. But I want you to hear my stuff in solo first. So we got kicks that do this. Okay, we got snares. You'll never get how these things gel. I'm telling you, it's kind of cool. Is there a reason why you blend the drum elements to the whole drum bass? Yes. I usually in my Martinez, this is a very good question. So, oh, amazing composer. Is there a reason why you blend the drum elements to a whole drum bass? Yes, there's obviously a reason for it. Nothing happens to chance in my songwriting. Well, I have way more basses than these. This is kind of a quick template from my mixing templates that I've added. My composing template has drums, beats. If we were talking about drums, I have drums, beats, grooves, cybers, and there's probably one more. So what's beats that grooves isn't, what's drums that beats isn't. So usually drums are my acoustic drums or orchestral drums, and I gather them all together. Then I have beats, which are single hit drum machines. Then there's grooves that are loops, okay? Oh, I actually think I have all loops as well, but I probably never use it. All grooves is groove, something you push a key and does 4 bars, right? For example. And cybers are just high frequency loops usually, or sound effects, okay? But I have a sound effects part as well, which I sometimes use. It's just, I group them. The reason for it is that now I'm going to have you listen to the China chokes and the cymbals, and then we'll put them all together, and they go to, and I route them to one drum bus that is all beats, and I process them. And then Martin has asked, do all the drums, beats, grooves, cybers, loops, go to one drum bus? No, but it would be a good idea if you want to do it. You can do that. I don't do it. They're all going to mix A, and mix A is my mix bus. It goes to mix B. Mix B is another mix bus. It's just so I can split plugins. And mix C is a third one. Sometimes I don't use all 3. And then mix C goes to print. Okay, so here you see mixtape loud. I just call them eventually mix A, mix B, mix C. But they are all one into the other. They're not, did I say parallel? If I said so, no. They're in series. Mix A goes into mix B goes into mix C goes to print, then I print my stuff. And yeah, but I don't sum the drums. I don't. So I sum the subcategories, I don't sum the drums. Okay, so now your drums, I think they're going to mix, and mine are going to beats. So, you know, clear, thanks. All right, perfect. So China chokes and cymbals do this. And all the 4 tracks together do this. Okay, and this is Roland stuff, a lot of Roland stuff. I think it's 707, 1606, 16266, something, I don't know, like, you know, the Roland stuff I like. Now, what is the retro limiter doing? Like, you set the ceiling, you set the gain, and then you make these things kind of work, you know? It's super useful to group things like this because it's way easier to get separation than if using more broad buses. Then, yes, okay, yes. It is super useful to group things like this because it's way easier to get separation. Yes, so James was saying, if you use a bus for drums and you have really like the number of rhythmic drum-like elements that I have in my songwriting, sometimes to me it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming also because the processing doesn't apply to all of them together. Okay, does it make sense? So the beats I like to mangle in a specific way. The grooves maybe don't need to. the drums do. And then there's another reason that thanks to James, I kind of, okay, this is also another reason. Sometimes I want the beats to run the sidechain against the bass, but I don't want the drums to run the sidechain against the bass. Does it make any sense? I want my Roland drum machines to drive the sidechain pumping. I don't want the acoustic orchestral drums to drive the pumping. Okay, I made sense. I really wanted this to come across, and I probably got worried it's super easy. Yeah, like, of course, that makes perfect sense. That's important. So usually the beats have a key for the sidechain. The grooves don't. The drums in orchestral drums, absolutely no. They don't even have lows, my orchestral drums, to be honest with you. The kicks in my drums bus sound like a theater with drum kit there, not like a kick drum mic'd inside, okay? And so that's what she said. All right, we got it. We got that joke down. All right, yeah. Not drinking honestly. Yeah, I know. It's like with coffee, but with different stuff. So the less you do the bad stuff, the more typos and other things happen. So the retro limiter now, I want this to mangle stuff. Now it's got a ceiling. You lower the ceiling and you crank the gain into the ceiling. So ceiling wants to push things down, gain wants to push things up. Eventually they meet and you start getting gain reduction. The way it sounds like, yes, but what does it emulate? I think it's a little bit like an EMI compressor, right? Old school, like a TG console desk or a red desk, something EMI. To me, it sounds like, I have to be honest with you, I'm like a horrible McDSP artist. I don't really know if it emulates a specific model. Probably does. Clicking on things in the hope that an answer comes out. But it doesn't. Horrible. Okay, so ceiling 0, gain 0. I think I've been so loud that this limiter will trigger, and it doesn't matter, right, Martin? That's exactly what he said. Like, it doesn't matter sometimes. Exactly. I like what it does. Maybe it compresses already because it's kind of not 0 dBFS ceiling. So maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Let's set it up. Okay, now I got it. Now the gain is right. Until then, you could say, like, it's louder, it's louder, it's louder. Yeah, it's louder, but it sounds good. So, and James said, I think of these as the Bentley plugins because they're of the logo. Classic and brown leather plugins. That's true. That's true. Bentley. It is true, though. I think they wanted it to be kind of, winking at that. So, ceiling, gain. I think I have a good point in which it's the same perceived loudness-ish, but it's a lot more meaty. Here are the lows, right? There's no attack, no controls. I want it, however, to be louder, so we'll see. Simple as that. It's just ballsier. It's just pushing things. And I hear that the lower transients are beefier than the higher transients. Does it make any sense? It gives low frequencies a rounder, more in your chest punch than it does for high mids. And so it's unbalanced in a nice way, I think, and it's really nice on a whole mix bus. So the other thing I've done is I've taken, I think I wrote the bass line part, which is still on, so I could kind of play it from the bass line. So the bass line part, when I press play, does this. Simple as that. Because ultimately, this is what I heard that the song wanted. So I played it. I have to play it again, but I just touched it very lightly, like band member. We got a new guy here. His name is Alberto. So Alberto, what do you think about the song? I think, oh, it's really nice. I like it. I've been looking for a band like this for the longest time, and I see your inspirations, and you probably have the same references. And the first thing I heard, I would like. So, what would you like to add? Well, something like this. And it's either you're gonna stay in that band forever, but you're probably gonna get all the shares and just become, the thing, or you get fired on the spot. So this is the bass line, completely naked, doing one mono track, programmed not in MIDI. There's no MIDI. It's doing everything on the steps, and there's a little bit of modulation, the noise, the sub, whatever. So I saved it, but the knobs don't save their positions, just the pattern. So it's nice, but I wanted to, it's very centered and it's in your face, but I was missing the sides. So I didn't want to, I want it even bigger. So what I've used is the EC300. This is relatively new. It's 3 presets. It needs some bolts low end. Well, probably, although I've done, maybe, I don't know if I've done, this will go into the mix. We'll see how we can kind of get it there. So maybe we can do some stuff to it. So what I've done here is there's magnetic, digital, and analog. There's 3 versions of it. Let me see if I've saved that. Yes. So magnetic, digital, analog. Great interfaces. You can even close the advanced controls. And magnetic is a tape delay, digital is a digital delay, and analog is a bucket brigade delay. Okay. So here, what I've done is just set a magnetic tape delay. And I've dialed saturation, there's wow, there's flutter, there's feedback with different timings, high passes, low passes, all that stuff. It's just a fantastic delay. It can be single, dual, ping pong. I've put it to 100% wet, yes. And it turns the bass line from this that we heard. Let's play it again, just because. You hear the sound when I stop it? To this. Hear how it goes? Outside way. I love this for doing this stuff. I know it's not easy to use at first. That, like, maybe you don't like what you hear, but I wanted this, and I remember when I tried this plugin first, it wasn't the easiest. It's a bit overwhelming. The interfaces change. You kind of lose track of where things are. It takes a little bit of time. You get used to the bracket brigade part. You go to magnetic, like, whoa, wait, where's the feedback? And maybe it's in your face. It's right there, but you can't see it, right? So it's got tons of effects, of nice things. You can, duck, dynamics, but I like the width, the offset, just the fact that this thing is just, it works, okay? I have not tuned it to notes. It's just a sort of a slap effect to the noise of things, okay? And so I've played this, and I think I've bounced it here. Does it sound the same? Probably, yes. Okay, well, I printed it, so I find the beauty of this device is when the source stops. It's a tail builder, right? Exactly, right? It gives it that extension thing. And you hear how I still want it centered, but I wanted it to contrast, to be connected with the sides of the things, Okay, so again, with the snares and with the drum machines, all right, I'll actually keep the bass line playing, the real one. Let me try that, because I think I hear move stuff around. Well, it's not printed there. I don't know. Let's try it, because it's a 64 bar thing, and I think it sounds way more lively there. So, and I haven't touched anything. So let's try the bass line itself. Well, I don't know. Well, I'll keep the printer track. Keep the printer track. The last thing I've done is play my Prophet 12. I needed something to go in the back. All right. So this is the track I've played, and it's on. It's live, this thing, but I've printed it as well. Okay, that. But what I've done is I've used the retro limiter again. Dave would be proud of that. I like to think so, because when I heard him speak, I've never ever talked to Dave Smith, but I heard it speak last sound Super Booth as well, and he's the kind of guy that would have gone like, break it. Who cares? Like, I've never thought of these. I doubt he has never thought of the sounds I make, but it's like, that's why I made it. Right? I keep thinking of, I heard it many times, so like, that's why we made it. Go. Very, very motivating person. Dave Smith was really something. He was, yeah. I mean, a lot of people talk about Bob Moog. I've always found Bob Moog, from, again, either the stage or as a person, a little bit more, not intimidating, but a little bit more thinking a couple bars in advance. Dave started that way because, I mean, he had shows to run. He had a company, but in 2 minutes, he would be the man, super enthusiastic of his stuff. So I'm kind of a bit more towards the Dave Smith approach than, right, like slamming on metal pipes. Yes, so the first thing I've done is compress it, and this is before and after. I don't think it's gonna compress. Maybe it will. It's just louder and maybe a little bit more mojo. Then I've used Revolver. So Revolver is, again, McDSP, and I have a couple presets in here that I use all the time in my template. I don't even look at it anymore. But here I wanted to go to the IRs that are mouth IRs. So these are recorded. This is a human mouth, okay? So it's a convolution reverb. It loads in pulses. It's got flow, pause, sync. It's got tons of settings that you would expect from convolution reverb. It is McDSP's convolution reverb, and it's called Revolver, which, not to be any gun sympathetic or something, but it's so good. when you read it and it's a Revolver, it's like, why did nobody think of that? Probably because they're not gunheads. I don't know. I don't think Colin is, but anyway, it's a great name, and it's just cool. So the other thing that it sounds like is that this is without, and this is with. I hope you heard it when I did the bypass, because I did the best bypass. All right, so the best bypass ever. There's a quantity of mid frequencies. It's really becoming rounder somehow. And then I've used another Revolver with, I wanted this to be uncomfortable. And McDSP corridors were uncomfortable. Let's try without. Let's try without anything and then with. Okay, so this is it. Now, why did I do that? Because I wanted a contrast between what was coming from the front and the back. So it's, you shouldn't even hear it, okay, somehow. So I don't think I've done anything else. The AC300, we said there's not an effect. So now we blend what Martin has done. We start from the vocals actually here. With the volumes might not be exactly where we wanted them, but I'm just gonna unmute the real stuff, okay? We do it with the real bass line, the real Prophet 12. This is really, there's MIDI here. Look, Prophet 12, that's what I've played. That's what she played. No, that's what I played. And the bass line has no MIDI because we actually cannot use the bass line because it will trigger on the bar 5. Okay, so we don't use the live stuff, we use the printed one. Because if I press play, it will start punching in from that moment. It's not getting any start stop. That's how I use it. I nail it and print, okay? So the audio files I've printed here, the 2 blue tracks, they have the actual wave audio, right? Printed straight there. And then we'll use Fadsbox, yeah, for sure, because Fadsbox is just insane. So how does it level with the mix bus, everything we have? I'm gonna take a look at the mix bus, and then we take a look at Fadsbox on maybe the main vocals and stuff. And maybe we play with something here and there, okay? So Prophet 12 and bassline live are not printed, and kick, snares, China chokes, and cymbals are all battery 4 samples, and then what Martin had.
This is the world you've made yourself. Now you have to live in it.
Okay. So the only thing I would do would be to take the sample, now you have to live in it, and find the best choking point. Then I'll let it play. Let's see if I wing it and it sounds good. It is really cool how it starts. It's just a little bit too sudden. It's like, I don't know. I have to find out how it works. So just like nudge it left.
This is the world you've made yourself. Now you have to live in it.
All right, how cool is that? I mean, for testing cables, this was cool. I like how I did it like in real time. I just took the part, instead of making the middle part more sparse, you add so much noise on the very first part, like people destroying themselves. I mean, this you could produce these to be even louder, and then you can drop even more. That you can loop this, and it creates a sort of an endorphin generator, because you just go big, small, and then try, and then it starts, and then I've added it to the end. It could be longer, whatever. So now let's reassess what I was doing on the mix bus while it's playing, okay? Just to further fine tune how this mix bus system could do it, right? So practical, right? let's try this with the sidechain, just readdress. I'm gonna go B settings on everything. Then we're gonna go on Fuzzbox.
This is the world you've made yourself. Now you have to live in it.
No matter how hard we tried, we're doomed. No matter how hard we tried, we're doomed. No matter how hard we tried, we're doomed.
All right, I could keep going and going and going. So not even sure it needs lyrics. The sample and the music say so much. I love how like couple things just randomly happen. Is that I looped it back in, and I love when the music doesn't go cymbal out, like crash, like hi, this is a chorus, and you just because your second snare gets such a highlight that without the compressor bank, I'm not saying the plugins make the song. You made the song. I just went with ideas because I had to test cables. But the contrast just emphasizes what you did as a drop in there, right? And when that single snare comes in, because of the little things we did on the mix, it's mixing itself. And this is why I say I don't mix when I compose that much. I know it's way more extreme than it should be, but that's why when you feel it, it's like, I don't want to touch it. I'm going, okay, I'm taking maybe an element on the highs, moving it a little bit somewhere. There's a hit after a couple snares, it's a little bit too loud. That's not easy stuff. That's just things really a kid could do if you teach them. That's not the music. It's not where the difference is made. It's the vibe of it. It just smells like perfection in the sense we don't care. I don't care, and I wrote stuff in it, and I could be super worried. Will they like it? Will they not? I don't care. It's one thing. We'll do another song next week. But if we were on stage at Super Booth doing this thing, we'll destroy the place. I can guarantee you that. I've been there and I've danced to so much stuff. If you do this to a Super Booth track and you obsess over mastering, mixing things, people don't care. The contrast, the vibe, the way you send a message there, which is what James says, I'm trying to reinforce what we're all saying. It's just there. People will dance their butts off. And this to me, when what I wrote just drops in from what you wrote, you appreciate the contrast. It just feels like you're walking with a beer in your hand and just the floor opens below you, in the club, and it's whatever, maybe substances or whatever. It's not really opening. You feel it is, and it's just completely redoing that, right? And it's about the music and the vibe. It's not about make it perfect and stuff. Imagine this is a live set. It's actually, if we keep it rolling, there's things that are just playing live. Who cares, right? And I've thrown in the most basic stuff. Like this is a 707 and a 606 samples together. I have a couple of folders of drum machines I like better, and I just said, who cares? So, right. So now we kind of made it chew a little bit more. I went a little bit more overboard here. Maybe it's a little bit too much. We don't care. But what does Fuzzbox do? Fuzzbox, because there's no way you can actually do all the plugins in one show, right? I mean, especially the quantity of how I talk. There's just no way. Well, I have a retro comp that I haven't turned on the bells, but I don't care about that. I want to see the spoken word here. Let's do a Fuzzbox. Starting right off the bat, I like the sample how it is. Okay, I'm not doing this because I think it's missing something. It's a pretext to use, Fuzzbox. I like how, yeah, nobody cares about bells, exactly. That's why I put 40-30 limiter, not compressor or something on it. But I like how just flat it is and a little bit 90s sounding, cheap DA. I like how it is. But what can Fuzzbox do? Fuzzbox has been, or Fatsbox, depending. I have a friend called it Fatsbox. I call it Fuzzbox. Fuzzbox is a sort of a speaker emulator, or just speaker or loudspeaker simulator. I don't know. Is it a good sense? So if you look at this, you go like, okay. So it makes things sound at its core, because it's got tons of modules. You see them, right? It's got pre, distortion, EQ filter, noise generator, hypergate, so on and so forth. But at the core of Fuzzbox, there's a speaker emulator. And you have cell phones, containers, earbuds, headphones, radios, telephones, speakers, small electronics, television, toys, vehicles, wireless, others. And the way I want to remember this is that Colin went to record these stuff late at night with people, boop, you would see like the light in their bedroom turning on, and somebody with a shotgun coming on is like, who goes there? And it's him trying to put a microphone into a garbage can in North Carolina for some reason, and trying to get it recorded because he just looked at it and thought it would look awesome. So these, I don't know. I think of him just trying to get his microphone, which sounds weird, into anything, but it's not a metaphor for it. It's at the physical, 100% true. Putting a microphone physically into something, there's so many things that you would question a person's sanity of. Why would you want to emulate this? I guarantee you the sound design features are great. So it's a very long list. There's tons of things. I know for a fact video games that use this. Tons of them. Like McDSP's Fuzzbox has been a post-production thing. There's when the superheroes things came out and they had to devise weird sound effects for, just devices and things. Fuzzbox is there a lot of times. So the random button is also essential. That's true as well. Just randomize everything and it will do. But if we were not to do that, you can turn on the simulator or not. You have an input and output, mix knob, very important. You have gate, noise generator, EQ filter. Some people set the simulator and then they design it around. Other people just, sometimes you don't need to simulate anything. Let's try with a distortion, for example. Look how many distortion types are there. SAT1, 2, fuzz, lo-fi, soft, stun, ouch, hard, nuke, clip. Let's try that.
This is the world you've made yourself. Now you have to live in it. This is the world you've made yourself. Now you have to live in it.
You hear how it's kind of gaining low mids?
This is the world you've made yourself. Now you have to live in it.
Hear how nice that is.
This is the world you've made yourself. Now you have to live in it. This is the world you've made yourself. Now you have to live in it.
You can wobble it.
This is the world you've made yourself. Now you have to live in it.
And this sounds really like speaker distortion, right? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes what I do is this in terms of randomizing. This. Medium speakers, I actually love this. I've used these exact simulators. So this is my body memory, muscular memory, going to muscular memory, going to these speakers. I can't believe I picked it on all of the settings. Medium speakers, right on. I mean, the icon doesn't lie. It's this thing. Okay, let's try this.
This is the world you've made yourself. Now you have to live in it. This is the world you've made yourself.
Honestly, this could be actually a very 90s thing to do. So you can lo-fi.
This is the world you've made yourself. You have to live in it. This is the world you've made. Now you have to live in it. This is the world.
And again, this no longer sounds like anything you would do, but how about mix 10%?
This is the world you've made yourself. Now you have to live in it.
I mean, here what am I showing you? Let's just demo it and try it, right? For example, these things kind of emphasize high mids, right? So maybe we can do a super low thing. I don't know. Like you can even add filters on
This
top.
is the world you've made yourself. Now you have to live in it. This is the world you've made yourself. Now you have to live in it. This is the world you've made yourself.
Right? And I'm keeping the character of the thing, but I'm just scooping things in. So when I add the simulator,
This is the world you've made yourself. Now you have to live in it. This is the world you've made yourself. Now you have.
I love the original sample as well. So we could stay here for years. So you can automate stuff. James is right. You can automate stuff around. You can pre-filter. So if we had too many lows, I mean, right? So many. You have a high pass, low pass, and then the hyper gate is only triggering the simulator when it's over that threshold. So many things. For example, this one, let's be just not extreme.
This is the world you've made yourself. Now you have to live in it. This is the world you've made yourself. Now you have to live in it. This is the world you've made yourself. Now you have to live in it.
For example, and I'll pre-filter it so we don't have many lows before the distortion.
This is the world you've made yourself. Now you have to live in it.
Okay, this one, for example, I would love, which is essentially as the original was.
This is the world you've made yourself. Now you have to live in it.
But this is an announcer kind of thing. This is so good. Without?
This is the world you've made yourself. This is the world you've made yourself.
It's just more pronounced. It's louder, of course, but I don't know. How would it feel here?
This is the world you've made yourself.
No, definitely not, because my bass line wants to play that bar.
This is the world you've made yourself. Now you have to live in it.
Okay, I have a loop on.
This is the world you've made yourself. Now you have to live in it.
Right? Okay? We've destroyed it. Let me just, we could fuzzbox the heck out of it. Oh, for example, bells. I want to keep going. I want to show you all of these plugins. So, this is another limiter. Okay, what have I done here on the bells? Let's just scoop things around. I don't know. I probably done, no, this one I've done without even thinking. This is actually not a minor thing. So first notes without, with. Aren't you in the freaking record? Just because of how the transient response is going. It's just so good. These had to be on from the get-go. Okay, now it just balances it with two knobs. Now you see why zero latency, just go, make that song. Probably because I'm not, how long has it been? It's close to 4 years. I didn't start right off the bat, but I would say it intensified the need for people to say, do you have this piece of music? I can pitch it to this guy. Do you have this thing? We have a sort of a newspaper thing coming out. We could license it non-exclusively. How much do you want? Write, sketch, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 30. I need to be fast. So, and I need to compose and mix and do that. I mean, it's, this is just, it sounds so good. You don't even need another knob, I think, It's just like, let's see where we haven't tested stuff. There's a couple things we haven't done. The active EQs would be a nice thing to see. All of the different compressors or one channel strip, Channel G would be awesome. Analog channel 101, okay. The ML4, okay, well, there's my preset. And de-essing and that stuff. But there's a couple things I want to do. So let me find something that might require a little bit of 60-60 action. And then we'll do multiband, because multiband is also important. Okay, let's do 60-60 here on that Cyber ARP, okay? So the 60-60 is McDSP's flagship module thing. And this is probably the one plugin I have used the most. It's got 6 modules, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can choose your target here or just click on it once. You can move things around. Remember that when you move it, so if I move 1 to 6, this is not 6, okay? This is still 1, okay? So 6 is now in place of 1. Dangerous, I know, that's how I wanted to do it. So you select if you want compressors, if you want equalizers or other types of things, or no module. You can even do no module, right? So you click on a module, decide what you want, keep going. At any given time, you can those sounds you hear are for my Cobalt synth which you sold. I've played it at Superbooth so much. The guys at who make Cobalt helped me out with the name of the brand. Oh, I have it on the tip of my tongue. Are super nice, and they had recurring shows in which they were just improvising. Model. The guys at Model were super fun, super available, explaining stuff, just letting me play. And they had shows like every 2 or 3 hours at Superbooth last year, and they were just improvising things. The Model booth was insanely cool, and it's got like a footprint. It always wants to go and aim at these kind of sounds and sharp wavetable things, but. Oh, I didn't know they're bankrupt. Okay. So I was this close to buying one. And then I said, I didn't have the Prophet 12 at the time. And then I said, well, but it's just because I want a Prophet 12. I know I like the Prophet 12. They're different, of course. And then chances just, popped out. And the guy said, we're moving a warehouse. We found a Prophet 12 in former sequential warehouse in Munich. Do you want to come pick it up? And I picked up a brand new Prophet 12, and let's just not even say. But it's a super nice keyboard, extremely portable, and it does some messed up sounds, which I absolutely love. If you let me close to wave shaping things, it's gotta be insane. I don't go, oh, it sounds like a flute. No, just don't do that, Roland Cloud stuff is pretty comprehensive as well. That's true. But the real thing is, but let's not call regrets on you. So this sound, what is this sound? Nice. Okay, what I want to do with this sound is just use the modules to showcase what this thing can do. The first thing I would do here would be to use a sort of a Fairchildy thing to just get a little bit more mids. I know we have bass, so I don't want the bass frequencies to be that prominent. You hear it? I nailed it. It's just exactly where I wanted it. Okay, before adding stuff, then the second thing we want to do is compressor, and maybe do just a little bit of the empty. I know the sounds of these modules, so I think the MT2 has the sound it needs. That's nice. Now, here's something I would not do, but I'm just gonna do it to show you how I use this. There's videos of me using this stuff a lot. It's got two buses, A and B, and right now we are on bus A. Everything flows from left to right. We can create a module and say that that module, we want to be the beginning of bus B with the barrier icon, okay? So now module 1 and 2 will go to A, the knob A you see, and module 3 will be the beginning of bus B, okay? And bus B is just the other knob, right? They both get combined to output here. So you can mute these stuff by clicking on A and B, so we can listen to just B, okay? So let's listen to just B, and I'm gonna tell you why. I wanna do some distortion of these. So I go to more and I take the D1000, okay? Is it clear? Yeah, I mean, it's not easy to just get it right off the bat, but then it becomes easy. So I wanna put an EQ just to filter stuff around, and I wanna put a distortion afterwards. So I'm gonna just mute A, listen to B, and we're gonna do parallel of B with distortion. I like how it sounds, but it's got too much content. I want to free some lows, okay? Instead of using filters, I'm just gonna use this peak here and go low. Like a very nice meaty, sort of not analog, but tube-ish distorted thing. I don't know. It's just like these three distortion modules, the S671, the Moody, S671, Moody, and D100 go in increasing levels of pain. They're beautiful. Look at that magenta and cyan thing. It feels like somebody suggested these colors, but maybe they did. I didn't. Anyway, now we drop the bus B to minus infinite. We reintegrate bus A, and we see the blend of these. I like the blend, and now I drop the output down. And now we do without and with. No, you cannot do mid-side. Yes, that would be a cool thing, to just split the signal that way as well. Yeah. Let's keep, yeah, that would be. There's a couple plugins I really miss having the mid-side controls on McDSP. I think that's the feature that maybe lacks the most, right? So, floor tone. All right, the whoosh up is actually awesome. Hear me out, okay? We're gonna do another 60-60. Have you heard how it kind of overwhelms, right? Maybe we only need one module, the C671. Let's try that. I wanna do the very new thing where the level is just right. I'm gonna try with default settings. Let's try it again. Without, with. Okay, that's perfect. So now what we do is just maybe increase the gain a tiny little bit. Boom, done. I mean, we could put tons of things in here just as many. Let me see what sounds kind of need something. Okay, this one. Here, let's do retro limiter. And these are all excuses. I don't want you to think that I'm hearing things and because I'm a genius producer, or I'm just trying to see a plugin that still makes sense, but that we haven't talked about. And I said retro limiter, I wanted the retro comp. Okay, there's also the retro EQ we haven't tried. Oh, that's also nice. But the retro comp could be nice on the lead highs. So attack, release, ratio, mix, gain, threshold. It's just like any other compressor. It's the sound it has. Again, to me, it feels kind of an EMI thing, right? Okay. It could be, right? A pattern mix source. Absolutely. We could do that. I'm going to use the retro EQ just to add some, I don't know, maybe a 800 hertz that I want. I mean, you see, this is very EMI, right? So let me do 800, which is kind of here. I like this. And this is, again, filters, EQ, whatever. You demo it, it's fine. I don't need to explain this. There's everything you see, you already know. In, out, high frequencies, high mediums, low mids. This is just such a good EQ and so fast. Okay, this lead low. Okay. This one could be another 60-60. This to me sounds like once diode bridge stuff for some weird reason, but I'm gonna do it on module 2 so that I have some here. Okay, and let me hear with the other stuff. This sound is the stereotypical sound you must, in my opinion, sort of sacrifice to put behind to give the impression of something that is, you know, farther from the stuff that kicks you in the nuts. So when nuts are involved, revolver. It's no reason. Just try to keep you on your toes. So we got our presets and we try, again, there's stuff that you question. Why has somebody sampled a man's room? Okay. Talk about uncomfortable. Okay. Oh, okay. Is it working on the track I want or no? Right, this is on lead high. Right, okay, got it. Okay, ready? Straight. Oh, it's very low. Why is it? A dry? For some reason, the man's room didn't have didn't have something. Well, there's a 140. Oh, okay, a 250 for this one could be nice, but then we sort of shifted. Okay, we just go length 0. So the 250 is a great moody thing, but tends to have or want long tails. I think people tend to overdo the tails. If you do it very like short, it becomes weird and it's nice. Okay, I mean, I had already said weird, right? Okay, for how weird that is, this is kind of nice. Let me try the pre-delay. You could automate these. You hear it pitches? I'm gonna do this. Because if there's one thing I want to teach you with brackets, it's just do it. Let's do this. Ready? Okay, I want to redo it. Just a sec. Oh, I think I cannot join you, right? Yeah, I don't know. Okay. The first part was nice. Okay, let's keep it as a scratch. This is really cool. I promise in the track's gonna sound nice. I make these kind of promises when people are like, I turn to the band or like people in the production and they're like, everybody's like frozen. Really like, why is this guy here? They're like, tell me again whose son is him from? And like, nobody. Like, why do you keep people who have no connections doing weird stuff? Weird stuff can only be done if you are the friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, and you know how it is, right? Oh, he's such a genius. No, hold on. Let's do this pre-delay trick and try and not get fired. This sounds good. I'm keeping it, don't care. And saving, just so I make sure I'm actually saving this thing. So now, this sound is a little bit, this is just perfect. Let's do AE400. I don't expect you at this point to just go, oh yes, super easy plugin. It's a weird plugin somehow, but just its behavior is unexpected to some people. So I'll try and make it as fast as I can. This is a dynamic EQ, but it doesn't need to be dynamic. It's 4 bands and it works just like any EQ, right? You move it up, down, and it will create gain changes of sorts, right? Q, frequency, gain, those are all static. Below you have controls, threshold, ratio, attack, release. You can turn the bands on and off. This is one of the greatest, not the only one that I love, but it's a great lifesaver. This is just an amazing tool. Has external or internal sidechain with monitor for each band. And you can then decide if you want to push or pull the frequency. So remember that you have a static gain amount and you have a dynamic gain amount. Both things are perfectly interchangeable, okay? So you can do 0 here, just change it. I want to find a frequency where the high mids, probably around here, are a little bit too much. I don't want these to become obsessive in terms of being the melody, like, hi, I am the melody. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to try and find it with static, and then we're going to just tame it down in dynamic. I'm going to show you how. We just need to set the level of the, you see how there's a darker green? That means how much the dynamic part can push, okay? I almost got it. There's a couple of them actually, couple resonances. So here, and maybe, let me do this one. So that's static EQ. We don't want that. So I'm gonna put these gains, outputs, back to 0, and I'm gonna drop the green. And I hope you can see that there's a green and blue part. These are gonna be the maximum ranges like the action amount that I can give that dynamic track. If I don't move the threshold, nothing's gonna happen, okay? I need to move the threshold. So the attack releases and ratios, you know what, leave them alone because they're kind of good starting points. Just move the threshold, otherwise you will not get the action, okay? Let's see that in movement. You hear it? Cool, right? Maybe 200 is a little bit fast. So what you can do, you can even set a master and set the other ones to slaving. So when you move a release here in the master, they all move down, right? It made it a little bit dark. Maybe, well, I'm gonna fix it in a second, but it's because the release is pushing down for too long. So let's first hasten the release. Hear it? It's the release. The first thing a lot of people would have done is just to EQ that band back up. But the reason why it felt dark is that the EQ dynamically was pushing down for too long. If you let go fast enough, your ear will not perceive that pull, right? That pulling down, pulling under. The other thing you could have done is just this. Add some kind of wide Q dynamic, like static EQ on top. It could work, but it was a release thing. Now it's kind of sounding the same as before. So I'm disabling band 1 and 2, kind of like where I was, because now I'm rebalancing, and so it's defying the application that I had. Kind of like this. This is just an example. You want to have more action, you just make one master, slave all the others, and try and pull the ratio up. It will pull the ratios of all, actually this is the attack, it will pull the ratios of all of the plugins. Careful on the controls, because I tend to still go below, right? And it's up. It gets me all the time. So ratio is this, and it will compress more or less. I think 1.2 or something was kind of fun. So I'm gonna keep these. Let's see where we were. I just want to prove a point. Retro limiter on the snare. It's essentially the same. It trades a little bit of micro punch for extension, and it just becomes a little bit more transparent. So Martin says, I also get confused all the time about where the names are and where for. It happens a lot with McDSP's horizontal interfaces. So it still gets me a lot. Yeah, for sure. So let's see the other tracks, and then we do a sort of a multi-band compression thing. Okay, I just lowered my monitoring to see if the snare was kind of too loud. I think it was a little bit too loud. A lower volume, and just dropped it ever so slightly. Now, we should take all the synths and move them into a different bus. Not the drums. Let's try and monitor these. We have drums are empty, bass is empty, keys and synths are empty. Okay, so let's try the synths first. So, okay, bass, these two, they go to bass, all bass. Bells goes to keys, or actually, you know what, synths. Floor tom goes to drums. Whoosh up, kick, ride, snare, snare, stomp, drums. I wouldn't do that with that way, it doesn't matter. Effects for vocals. What is left? Lead, all synths. And these FX, whoop, hoop, maybe drums. Who cares? Who's left? Nobody. Okay, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna close it on the multiband. The reason why I'm not gonna do mastering limiter 1 and 4 and 8 in a lot of detail is because I have other videos on it. So if you're watching these, just go watch the other videos as well. But I think I have been missing more on the multiband compressors than on the ML series. So the first thing I want to do is take the synths bus here, right? This one, dynamics. We're gonna use the SPC 303. The 202 has 2 bands, 303 has 3, 404 has 4. But I think the 3 is kind of a nice go, all right? So I'm gonna mute everything just because I'm so stupid and keep the synths bus, okay? All right, now as a starting point, this thing is huge, okay? Here, there's 3 bands, or actually no, I don't want this. I want the MC 2000. Now the SPC is a completely different beast. I'm gonna show you in comparison what it can do, right? It's not for mute. Yeah, I know. Do you know if the M within the channel numbers of the SPC 2000 is mute? No. When you see M in the McDSP plugins, they are usually master mode. It means that whichever band has an M on will control with its controls the other ones. It will not make them equal, it will just rotate them when you rotate that master control. So it will keep the ratios, the comparison, you know, the relationship equal. It's master. Sometimes you have just M, other times you have M and then L. And the ones that have the L will behave to the M. Does it make any sense? Yeah. If you move something that doesn't have an M, it will move independently from the others. But if you move something that is a master, it will be the master of all of the other tracks. So the difference between the SPC 2000 and the MC is that the MC is multiband dynamics. So it's 2 crossovers, 3 bands, just as a multiband compressor. And Martin says, is there a way to solo a band? That's also a good question. I usually take the gain. There isn't just a solo button that I know of, but I take the gain and just drop it like this. Boom, -24. And it's not the same thing, it's true, but it works. It works. But there's no solo buttons. Like I want to solo a band, but I will show you how I use this, and you probably go, I don't need the solos, right? I will not use the SPCs because this is 3 compressors in parallel, series, mode 3, 4, 5. The SPC is beautiful, but it's a very, very specific tool, and it can do amazing things, but it's not what I want to do. So we'll do the MC because it's what I want for the synths, okay? So we take this and we go probably 100, and I'm gonna go 1,500. Why? Because usually it's starting points that kind of work. The lows, the mids, the highs, okay? I'm gonna drop the lows and the highs, and we're gonna listen to the synths alone. Right, then we're gonna do the same for the highs and the lows. Right, okay. So what I wanna do is, I wanna set the compressor at 3. Actually, you know what, 2 is fine. It's just a bass control. The knee I keep at 0. The bite I don't touch. I'm gonna set the attacks a little bit more permissively. So 30 or 40, and the release on auto for now. Just very simple. I need to keep some things clean and under control, just automatic, just so I can fine tune how this works. I'm gonna do these in isolation. I would never do it in isolation. When I've used it when I compose, I usually have everything on and just touch a little bit here and there and just rebalance how the synths work. I'm gonna drop the threshold down and we're gonna see compression. It's gonna be completely off. Something's gonna be too much, not enough, but from there on, we can just adjust a little bit here how things work and shape it. I'm gonna try and do it in isolation, but I would need the whole track to play, okay? Let's try these in isolation. See how the mids are compressing a lot, the lows and highs not. So we drop the master and we try and, you know, bite a little bit more. That's what I would like to do, just to start getting control on everything. Now we do a before and after. It's not musical. It's not about being musical. It's about, do you hear how controlled that is? It's just, and I haven't been genius artistic. 100 hertz, 1500 hertz, 2-to-1, 30 milliseconds attack, auto release. It's still a very permissive 2-to-1 compressor, but you know, it's floating now. That's a bus multi-band compressor setting. We can fine tune things, of course. Yeah, we're gonna do that. For example, what about the gains? Let's try and push some stuff a little bit more than others. You hear that controlled compression is now getting way louder, right? Mids. This is more scooped. Very easy. Highs. This is just obnoxious. So what I'm gonna do is this. I would feel that maybe the mids and lows need a little bit more bite, just to let go of the fast transits. This to me is enough. Now I'm gonna get maybe a little bit more compression, a faster attack on the highs. And I'm trying to listen to those bells. And I want them to not be here, where I'm sitting. I want them to be there, in the record, not here. I don't know how else to say that. And now it sounds like the bells are at the end of my desk. The other part is on the speakers, and it's kind of three-dimensional, a little bit thicker, you know, a bass that I can feel the fast versus slow and kind of the things that go around. Now, we're gonna press play and we're gonna listen to what this does to the synths, okay? And I'm gonna play and adjust these as I would do it in the song. So now we got control over stuff, especially for the mid frequencies. Probably I'm gonna retouch the crossovers, okay? Okay, so what we have here is a balance thing, because I obviously put my purple tracks on top of the rest. But when we've been mixing the other stuff without what we had that I've added, we had been balancing things together, right? And the drums are now working their way out, working their way in. So it needs to be threefold. My purple tracks, original drums, and the synths we've been working with. I'm gonna start with the original drums and original synths. Somehow I lied, I still kept my stuff on, but it's working. Do you hear the difference now? This is just completely rebalanced. And it's just, what this does to me is it feels more mixed. I don't want to say you need this because it's just putting a lead on it, but control has really increased, right? It's such a controlled environment. So we don't need this much of this one, right? And we control that. But if we copy these over the bass, we have the same one, we can do it differently. I hope you hear it. It's no longer bass and synths, it's low bass, mid bass, high bass, low synths, mid synths, high synths. 6 degrees of fine tuning with a tiny little bit, well, not a tiny little bit, it's like 2-to-1 dynamics. So we're losing a lot of dynamics. And in my opinion, I'm just brainstorming stuff because we had such a live vibe that I liked. I will go master on the lows and I will take comp and I will drop these down. Actually, I'm gonna go master on the mids because it's got 2-to-1. I wanna drop these two way less, maybe 1.4 is enough. Okay, I kind of had to say I liked it where it was. I liked it better. How about now? Okay, the drums now, here. I mean, we could explore these as well. We could do the same thing, just this on the drums. This is getting a little bit overproduced, but it's just, I'm copy pasting, just giving you the idea of how much control you get over this. Would I do it necessarily? I don't know, but how about without these 3 and with? It's disarming what multiband compression does. It's just filling all of the little spaces that we're missing. It sounded very full before, but now if you just drop these, you go like, it's, I have a lot more control over the bass, and when you drop the volume, if you have monitors or speakers here, I can do it for you maybe. Let's drop the volume while I'm listening. Don't touch anything, I will do it for you. I'll start without, and I'll drop the volume down, I don't know, minus what? Maybe 24 or something, I have no idea. And then I'll turn it on, okay? You heard it? How it just, at low volume, it just fills up a lot more. High volumes, it's more controlled, it feels more space, but you don't probably want as much because you're getting hit and blasted so much, right, by it. But at low volume, it just makes the music. Imagine how many people might listen to these at radio level, while doing work and stuff. It's just more produced, right? So on digital networks, Spotify, louder stuff. We've been talking about, people feel it louder and they vote more for it. This could be more than the loudness thing. It's about how coherent this is. And it's to prove a point. It's very overdone. There's, on the synths, on the buses, on the things. Probably I wouldn't do it. Last but not least, let me do an ML 4000. And then we call it a day. It's on mastering. I'll use the ML4. And I'm just going to show you if I'm curious, my preset works. Alberta's Mix Bus. So the way it works here, we have a limiter stage, ceiling, threshold, knee release, and we can turn off the various modules, the gate, expander, compressor, and limiter, okay? So I'm gonna start with the limiter on with compressors and expanders off. I have compressors and expanders set for all 4 bands. And the first thing I usually do in my preset, I will not go over it because it's a very long and difficult plugin, but it sounds beautiful. I'm just gonna set the limiter to, I don't know, like a digital distribution. -1, -1. Let's see if we're hitting it or not. I hope not. Actually, let me put my stuff as well here with this, and I'll probably have to rebalance these guys from the beats, and these are on all bass as well. No. I'm gonna go all keys, because if I put it into basses we've been working on, we'll just go freak out. So we have all beats and all keys, and I'm going to readdress these in balance, put them down and up. Okay, now my beats. Okay, I would EQ my bass line just because now, because of the other elements, it's not asked to build everything it needed to, right? It needs to be much more scooped and either decide, do we want it as a feature, do we want it as some sort of like background sound, but this is just a draft, right? If you had 3 minutes of a song, I mean, this could be the ending chorus in which you add the bass line part, or this could be the second half of the chorus in which you even drop the bass line. This could be the second chorus, right? I don't know. Just it's nice. You can fade it in. There's tons of ideas. That's beyond the point. It's just I'm getting arrangement ideas. Now let's try and do this. I'm gonna set the limiter. Let's see if it's clicking, triggering or not, and -1. Not even close. Okay, let me see if this compressor needs a little bit less threshold. Okay, love this. The limiter isn't even touching itself. So let's go, which sounds weird, I know, but let's try and go here. As long as I keep them together, I want to let you feel a little bit of the limiting stage. Wow, that's a lot louder. Why would it be that louder if we have a minus? Okay, I'm gonna keep it -6, -6. That's pretty loud. I probably thought, well, why are we getting that pretty loud? Tape, loud, print, I have no idea. Well, okay, I have no idea. Why is that happening? If the ceiling is at -6, and we're not thresholding. Maybe I get what it's doing. Okay, well, I don't use the limiter stage here. I don't need it. Let's go to the compressor stage, actually, and let's see where things are getting pushed or pulled. I usually just move either the threshold or the gains. So, compressor stage first. Okay, let's say I like this. Let me try and usually play with the high mids. okay, maybe the highs don't really need that. But now the expander stage. So we turn it on and we try and get the expander to move against the compressor. It's a kind of a weird thing. When done right, I think it sounds cool. Let's try that. The gains of each band are static. They are not dependent on which module you're in. It's just that the thresholds are. So things change. You see, if I'm staying at expander. So now I want the full expanders here. Okay, now without and with. And yes, the preset is downloadable via Patreon. Yes, it's the Alberto's Multiple. This has been super famous for 1 year. I don't know. Like, it tends to make things better. I don't know. Just, it's something I've done for years. And it's just, it's just, you know, I usually don't use the limiter when I use the ML4. Compressor and expander, and that's it. The limiter I do elsewhere. Maybe with the ML1, you know, it's just about, I'm actually trying the before and after. Maybe it doesn't sound that good. I'll just tell you. Have you heard it? It did it. I mean, to me, it did it this. I don't know if I'm hooked to what it does. This thing is a truck. It's a truck. You're like hitchhiking on the highway and you're just gone. It hits you so strong. It's just so hard. And it's the typical, how did you get that sound? I don't know. This plugin just keeps amazing me. It's just, I get it. It feels produced. Some people might say it's overproduced and blah, 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 and all that. But I don't know. It's just hard to let go. I mean, you're mixing it, right? You want to, it's more message. I hear like when the song has that breakdown and that snare comes and I bypassed it, you're like, no. And Martin says it sounds like a record. And how cliche is that, right? Sounds like a record. We've been saying that since the digital audio workshops, but it's true. There is sometimes that one plugin that you go like, now it sounds like a record, you know? And these I have on all of my songs. I think pretty much, maybe some sketches I haven't used, but I usually start with this. Now I've ended with this, and it proves it still works. Just as long as we don't hit that one on the first Vari-Mu compressor. Have you noticed when I dropped it, just half a dB tops completely changes the behavior of all of the other compressors and things we put after. So, people, it's been a pleasure. So, as usual, I'm going to dinner, and I hope that this was not about selling more McDSP plugins, not about whatever, you know, affiliate links, you know, click here, click. I don't care. I couldn't care less. These, however, are plugins that I've used for, as I said, close to 28 years, 29, I don't know. And it's probably the bundle that I've used the most, and it's got updated with the interface being bigger, but when it was super small, I would still use it. People would make fun of me, doesn't matter, I don't care. It sounds as good as it does now. It's just the interface is much better now. They work. I hope it wasn't just about mixing, it wasn't about showing the plugins, it's about in the ears. Why do you keep preferring some workflows than others? It isn't just because of good or bad luck. It's that you get that movement. You go from point A to B to C to D. It's a very hard task to deal with our creative selves. The tools should make it a lot easier. And these come from a very old time when things weren't as amazing as they are now in technology. The question is, did we have progress? Not always, right? Tons of plugins come out. Not all of them are really affecting the way you do it. For me, a little bit of here and there that I've added, but not so much. So I am glad. Thank you, Martin and James, for being, actively here, bringing up. Martin wrote these stuff. I just added crap on it, and which actually, I like it, of course. But it's not even a song, right? It's not even a song. It's just something that, as a draft, Martin said, do you want to have it? And this, I still want to underline, is the core of why we do this. It's music here, music there, doing stuff, handling things around. Amazing, right? So I've added stuff on it as I felt it. We just mixed more stuff in, pretended we wanted to use the plugins that we felt were good. It was just a nice overview. I hope it gave you ideas, made it possible for you to say, oh, this is actually such a little step, but it's just how, wow, this, wow, that, I would secretly, not so secretly, just, end every stream with you having ideas of saying, when I have time, I want to sit at the piano, I want to sit at the keyboard, I want to sit at the plugin DAW, whatever. I need to try that. I haven't tried it. I have an idea. I have a new thing. This is ultimately why I do this. Okay? So thank you very much. It's been an honor as usual. We'll catch each other soon on Discord or on Patreon. If you want to sign up, watch the videos, you know where I am. Ciao. Actually, no. Ciao. That's how you do it. Bye, people.